Following the defeat of the Noldor elves in the Nirnaeth Arnoediad, Morgoth's forces swept through Beleriand, capturing much of the area, including Hithlum, which was given to the Easterlings who betrayed the Union of Maedhros. However, the Dark Lord had no intention of rewarding them, instead turning these lands into a prison by cutting them off from the rest of the continent. After the siege and fall of the cities of Brythombar and Eglaris in the Falas, Círdan led the survivors to the Isle of Valar, hoping to establish a refuge for their people, while in the east, the sons of Feanor lost their lands as well, retreating to Amon Ereb. Of the great elven kingdoms that once existed, Doriath was one of the few to remain, protected by the Girdle of Melian, created by their queen. Nargothrond also remained unconquered, ruled by King Orodreth, who, along with King Thingol, did not participate in the battle against Angband, instead fighting a secret war from the shadows in order to avoid attracting Morgoth's attention. As a result, Morgoth did not consider these realms as immediate threats to his power, instead focusing on Gondolin, ruled by Turgon, who after the death of his brother Fingon, became High King of the Noldor Elves. Yet the location of their city remained unknown, and so the Dark Lord tortured and interrogated his captive Húrin, who had traveled to Gondolin in his youth. Despite the horrors inflicted upon him, Húrin refused to betray King Turgon, and so Morgoth placed a powerful curse on the man and his family, seating him immovably upon the mountain Thangorodrim, so he might watch helplessly from afar, as his loved ones suffered their tragic fates. With the Easterlings given dominion over Hithlum, including the lands of Dorlomin, they plundered and enslaved the last remnants of the House of Hador. In order to protect Húrin's son, Túrin was sent to Doriath, where he was raised by King Thingol, while his mother Morwen remained in Dorlomin, giving birth to her third child, Nienor. Fortunately, Húrin's wife and young daughter were largely left in peace, due to a rumor that stated Morwen was a powerful witch allied with the elves. In Doriath, the boy Túrin grew to be a strong, courageous, and highly skilled fighter, and at the age of 17 asked King Thingol for a place among his warriors. Throughout these years among the elves, Túrin befriended Mablung the Heavy Hand and Beleg Strongbow, but also made an enemy of Seidos, counselor to the king. Eventually, Seidos tried to ambush his enemy in the forest, but died in the resulting conflict. Believing he would be held responsible, Túrin left Doriath behind, taking over the leadership of a band of outlaws, where he was soon joined by his friend Beleg, who brought him the sword Anglakel as a gift from King Thingol. Unfortunately, leaving Doriath was but the first step down a terrible path for the son of Húrin, who went on to bring pain and suffering to nearly all those he grew to love. First, his band of outlaws were massacred in Aman Rud after making an enemy of Mim, the petty dwarf, who revealed their location to the orcs. Next, Túrin killed his friend Beleg Strongbow when he awoke confused and disoriented after being rescued from captivity. Realizing what he had done, the son of Húrin nearly went mad with grief, but his new friend Gwyndor, a former captive of Morgoth, took him to Nargothrond, where Túrin reforged Anglakel into a black-bladed sword he named Gurthang. In time, this human among elves became an important advisor to Orodreth, but again the curse struck, as he convinced the king to build a great bridge across the river Narog and fight openly against the Dark Lord Morgoth at the Battle of Tumhalad. Unfortunately, they were devastated by the fires of Glaurung, father of dragons, resulting in victory for the forces of Morgoth, who killed King Orodreth, sacked the city, slaughtered their warriors, and enslaved the population. During the battle, Glaurung used his magic to place Túrin into a hypnotic daze and twisted his mind, convincing him that his mother Morwen and younger sister Nienor needed him in Dorlomin. And so when he awoke from his stupor, he did not try and rescue the elves, instead needlessly departing for his people's homeland, where he learned his mother and sister were not even present, having traveled to Doriath long ago searching for Túrin. Realizing the trick that had been played on him, the son of Húrin grew so enraged, he killed the Easterling lord Broda, before turning back to track down Glaurung and his prisoners. Unfortunately, Túrin's reckless behavior in Dorlomin proved devastating for the remnants of the House of Hador, who suffered further abuse and oppression at the hands of their Easterling masters. Although he failed to protect his people, Túrin hoped he could rescue Finduilas, the betrothed of his friend Gwyndor, who died in the Battle of Tumhalad. But he arrived too late and collapsed in grief upon her burial mound. Racked by pain and guilt, Túrin returned to the forest of Brethil, where he came across a beautiful woman crying with sadness and no memory of her past. She took the name Niniel, and soon they were married, allowing Túrin to know happiness once again. but soon enough it was all taken away as he faced Glaurung in battle, mortally wounding the creature before collapsing unconscious from a magical spell. While he slept and Glaurung lay dying, the dragon used his final moments to lift the veil of amnesia set upon Niniel to reveal that her name was actually Nienor, sister of Túrin Turambar. Realizing that she married her own brother and was pregnant with his child, Nienor took her own life by leaping into a ravine. When Túrin awoke, he was told what occurred by Brandir the Lame, lord of his mother's people, the Haladin, but grew so enraged he refused to believe it, killing the man before many witnesses. Yet soon his friend Mablang of Doriath arrived, confirming the truth of the tale, and Túrin became so distraught he could no longer abide the misery of his life, and fell upon his sword. With the children of Húrin dead, the Dark Lord Morgoth feigned mercy and freed his captive, knowing that the man was now broken and might inflict his misery and doom upon others. Finally free, Húrin returned home to Dorlomin, only to find it occupied by Easterlings, with the last of his people enslaved. He then set out to take refuge in Gondolin with his friend King Turgon, but when he arrived he received no response, as the king feared this might be a trap by the Dark Lord. Feeling betrayed by the king for whom he'd sacrificed so much, Húrin yelled out in anger, and by doing so revealed to Morgoth the general location of Gondolin, which would ultimately contribute to the city's downfall. Turned away, Húrin continued on to the forest of Brethil, where he was at last reunited with his wife Morwen, encountering her at the graves of their children. Yet he found her in rags, so weary from heartache and despair that she soon spoke her final words and died, buried alongside her children. Húrin, now poisoned with bitterness and hatred in his heart, killed the petty dwarf Mim and traveled to Doriath, where he confronted King Thingol for failing to protect his son. But sensing the corruption within him, Melian the Maya used her magic to clear his mind, leaving Húrin to realize all the harm he'd done and how his actions only served to help the Dark Lord. No longer able to cope with the curse that destroyed his family, Húrin Thalion, hero of the House of Hador and rightful lord of Dorlomin, ended his own life by throwing himself into the sea. Yet Húrin's influence lived on, as before his death he had recovered a precious necklace called Nauglamir and gave it to King Thingol before departing Doriath. The king then took the necklace, along with the Silmaril given to him by Beren, and hired the dwarves of Nogrod to combine them into one magnificent piece of jewelry. However, the beauty and allure of this creation was too powerful, and when the work was complete, the dwarves demanded the necklace itself as payment. When Thingol refused to pay their price, violence erupted, resulting in the death of the king. Heartbroken by the loss of her husband, Queen Melian left Middle-earth and returned to her homeland of Valinor, leaving her kingdom vulnerable to attack, no longer protected by the magical barrier she had maintained. As for the elves of Doriath, they were so enraged by the death of their king, they tracked down the escaping dwarves and slaughtered all but 2 who managed to return to Nogrod. Once arrived in their homeland, the survivors lied about what had occurred, claiming Thingol refused to pay them for their work and that it was he who had attacked them. Enraged by this apparent betrayal, the dwarves gathered an army and marched on Menegroth, sacking the city in a terrible battle with heavy losses on both sides, including the death of Mablang, who guarded the Silmaril necklace, which was then taken by the invaders. Yet the victory of the dwarves was short-lived, as Tol Gallen soon heard about the death of Thingol and attack on Doriath, prompting Beren to leave their sanctuary with an army of green elves to slaughter the dwarves returning to their mountain and recover the precious necklace, which was then worn by Luthien until her death, when it was passed on to her son Dior, who inherited the rule of Doriath. Love audiobooks? Then be sure to check out Audible, where they have the world's largest collection available. Simply sign up through the link in the description box below and get 2 free audiobooks to start out. A special thanks to all those who contribute to CivilizationEx, like Q Straight Arrow Valverde, Kyle Blitzsword, John Shadowcat, and Tio the Iron Banker. If you'd like to help CivilizationEx, click on the Patreon link, and please be sure to like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and click on the links to see more.